Our presentation has to do with the social aspects of the energy transition to clean energies. It focuses on the main priorities of the European Union in terms of the exploration of social aspects. I will focus my intervention in one of the projects that we are coordinating at the University of A Coruña, where we try to tackle the social aspects from different point of view. First of all, I would like to say that our work follows the main line of the European Union. The idea is to involve citizens which are interested, different stakeholders and administrators. As I said, involving citizens in the management of energy is one of the challenges of the European Union. We need to take into account what it means when we talk about involving citizens. This means that environmental commitments promoted to raise awareness, allow, for instance, to create energy communities which try to manage and introduce their ideas in the management of energy and energy policies. Social participation and organization around these collective actions is derived from the increasing price of energy that we are seeing in Europe, electricity and energy in general. So stimulating collective solution in front of individual solutions is also part of the agenda of the European Union. To engage citizens, we need to carry out an analysis of the ambiguity given the difference between proposed solutions and sustainable solutions. We see that there is a very low response in this case. So we need to move towards a change in the governance system, since decision-making in terms of energy requires that citizens are informed and citizens act responsibly and get involved in these communities. We also need a legal set of specific rules that regulate the social participation in energy management and also to participate in decision making. Financial incentives are needed, as well as empowering citizens in order to support social innovation initiatives based on the management of energy. We also need to create a context for co-creations to empower citizens and to stimulate their participation. The Entrances project is a set of co-creation scenarios, the aim of which is to tackle the social aspects of the clean energy transition. The idea is to develop an understanding based on empirical studies and theoretical studies on issues that are important and which relate to aspects involving the activation of behaviors in the field of energy. Within this global objective, we want to provide the European Commission with a set of policy recommendations on best governance strategies and also policy mixes to tackle these issues. Our approach has social, economic, technical, ecological, environmental, cultural, political, and psychological aspects in mind, as well as other cross-cutting issues which have to do with the way that we approach different strategies in different regions of the European Union. There's also a gender dimension included, which is relevant, as we've seen in many studies. The economic and social transformation of the region has some impacts in terms of employment among women, and these are things that need to be taken into account and that needs to be translated in adequate gender policies. For instance, developing a comprehensive and detailed knowledge on the social aspect of the transition to clean energy as they emerge in 13 studies of coal and carbon-intensive regions. Also, We need to develop a better understanding of the differentiated problems faced by these regions in transitions and the coping strategies that they have developed or are developing. Also, among our goals, we want to co-create a set of policy recommendations that reflect lessons learned from the results of the project. Also, we need to contribute to the promotion of a common vision on the societal implication and the opportunities provided by the clean energy transition. The approach is going to be multidimensional, but also interdisciplinary. And Transis is currently developing theoretical models and evidence on key processes of clean energy transitions in coal and carbon intensive regions, which produce a lot of CO2. This will be done through multi-scale, multi-region comprehensive research involving different disciplines like the economics, demographics, science, technology, environmental studies, political sciences. So there are technological aspects, but also social aspects and cultural and economic and psychological aspects. And Transis is evaluating the context to better understand how citizens and civil society organizations and public administrations are informed about the challenges and the strategies. Here we have the deterritorialization process, that is the losing of links between people and their administrations. In this case, we need to focus on the components that we mentioned before, and also deepening or delving deep into the effects of this deterritorialization. We also explore a better way to go back to a re-territorialization process, that is to re-establish these links between human beings and the region, seeing which are the most appropriate strategies for the components being analyzed. We try to identify hurdles and activators for involvement and changing behaviors. We're working on 13 regions all over Europe. In cooperation meetings, we also take into account the different points of views from regions outside Europe, like a meeting that was carried out last June. We invited, for instance, representative of carbonized regions from Brazil, South Africa, and China. They showed us their results, and the idea was to include that knowledge as part of the comparative analysis among different European regions. We have seized heterogeneous approaches to create a multidimensional analytical frame, including 13 case studies. The idea is to produce a taxonomy, a set of models, and most importantly, to lead to a dialogue among stakeholders. This is our theoretical framework. From each social dimension, we use a different methodology. In the case of this economic approach, that includes an analysis of the labor market structural change. In the social, technological, and ecological change, we focus on the transformative capacities of the region. Or, for instance, we also coping strategies from an individual perspective. Currently, we are working on the drafting of the psychological study. This is what we are doing in Spain, apart from coordinating the project. Simultaneously, research is being produced using interviews, focus groups, analysis of documentation, and all text produced by the transition. And there are 6 dimensions like the gender perspective, or a cross-cutting perspective.
From what we've done so far in the first year, we have we have done an analysis of the literature, analyzing the factors and the dynamics in each one of the territories, trying to create the research questions. We have created a preliminary questionnaire to see if this reflects the dimensions we want to cover, and we have introduced the necessary changes, and now we have just collected the data of the surveys, of the interviews in the focal groups and so on. And these are the dimensions that from this social and psychological perspective are calling our interest: the place attachment, the decarbonization process, and how this affects the stress, the resilience capacity, the capacity to approach the different challenges and transition models with optimism or pessimism, the coping strategies they are using in each territory, and how this affects life satisfaction and so on. We're also establishing the differences based on socio-demographic variables. This is all being analyzed right now, and in parallel, all these scenarios are being designed, all these cooperation designs, which will involve the national, regional, local governments, and also representatives of the industry, civil society, or the academia, research, and education, in order to integrate all this knowledge and the data that come from the project from the different sources. Basically, we want to integrate and provide knowledge and interpreting this knowledge based on this transdisciplinary multi-level perspective. And also we want to recommend a set of policies, and these are the main stages of our work. The final goal is to create a catalog of interpretations based on the work we carry out in each one of the regions, which will contain a transdisciplinary analysis of knowledge and internal discussion on the interpretation and the set of observations and interpretations of the provided by the different policymakers and stakeholders that participate in the territory. So based on a network of observation, based on all the information that will be collected, we will write a report which will be the basis for decision taking at the European and national levels. So we will develop a set of scenarios where we will compare the results among the different regions, among some scenarios and others, in order to identify the patterns that are more interesting, we want to recommend for dealing with the strategies of COPE at the European level. We've had this first experience with the participation of different sections of the European Commission. We have had our colleague here collaborating. The question is how we dealt with the transition towards clean energy in Europe. And this is addressed to politicians, to European networks of interesting, relevant stakeholders, and also representatives of national governments. We're also doing this at the local and the regional level in order to produce, based on all this work, all this transdisciplinary work, and all these political policy recommendations, we want to create a reference framework for this energy transition. We are 14 partners from 12 countries in the European Union, and it is this great interdisciplinarity. This is coordinated from the University of La Coruña, and if you want to subscribe to a newsletter, you can do it through this link. We publish all the reports and the achievements in this newsletter.